the first thing I immediately noticed was it felt like someone had erased my genitals from my existence. It's like all of that, everything that I know about sexuality, about sex, about feeling, sexual feeling, romantic feeling, all of that was just erased. And it's not that it was like lessened. It's not a lessening of the libido. It's an erasure of it from existence.
PSSD, or Post-SSRI sexual dysfunction, is one of the worst side effects you could develop from antidepressant use. Not only does it cause enduring sexual dysfunction, but it also causes serious emotional blunting. Today we talk with Benjamin, who has been living with this condition for 14 years. He opens up about his struggles, but also shares how he's come to terms with it and managed to build a life of meaning and fulfillment despite the challenges. Let's get over to Benjamin for the interview. Hi, I'm Dr. Josef Witt-Doerring, and today we're talking with Benjamin, and Benjamin's going to be discussing PSSD. So, Benjamin, thanks for coming on.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Okay. For those of you who may not be aware, PSSD is a side effect that happens when people take antidepressants and they come off, they find that they have a lot of sexual impairment, and sometimes it can go on for years and sometimes indefinitely. So, Benjamin, why don't we start there? Can you explain to the audience what happened to you with these medications?
Yeah, one of the strangest experiences of my life. So years ago, I was in my late 20s. This was 14 years ago. I thought at the time that I was depressed. To this day, I'm still not sure if that's what it was, but I decided to try antidepressants. Me and my twin brother both decided to try them. We went on a journey together to try antidepressants. And we tried a couple, I can't remember which ones, but they didn't really have much of an effect on us. So we kept down that path. And eventually the doctor said, you should try Cymbalta. And me and my twin brother, both tried it. And after I took the first pill, I'm not kidding you, doctor, after the first pill, 20 minutes after the first pill, I knew something was wrong. I felt something happen in my brain, like something had been lost. The first thing I immediately noticed was it felt like someone had erased my genitals from my existence. It's like all of that, everything that I know about sexuality, about sex, about feeling, sexual feeling, romantic feeling, all of that was just erased. And it's not that it was like lessened. It's not a lessening of the libido. It's an erasure of it from existence. And I thought that was very, very strange. Also, I'm
going to ask you just to dwell on that a little bit, because hearing something like that, I think, is going to be really hard for someone to conceptualize if it hasn't happened to them. So go into a little bit more detail about that. The erasure of your libido. How did that feel? Give it some texture.
Yeah. Something like that is deep in the side of you. It's deep in your cognition. It's always lying in wait. You can do like a reference check to it where it's, how do I feel about women? How do I feel about sex? How do I feel about the opportunity for such a thing? And you're used to, as a grown adult, you're used to feeling a certain way whenever that happens. And to me, that's whenever you're turned on, whenever you're interested. And I noticed that 20 minutes after I took that first pill, that did not happen anymore. It absolutely did not happen. It's like that part of me had just floated away somewhere. It's I couldn't even conceptualize what it used to be like anymore. It's like it was just gone. And I actually, I went down there and made sure everything was still there and okay. I mean, it sounds crazy, but the feeling is that severe where it's like, is it still there? And it was there, but it's completely numb. There's no feeling. It's like there's just this appendage between your legs, but you don't know what it does. And you're right. It's extremely hard to conceptualize because it's different than having your libido lessened. A lot of people equate it to that of just, there's going to be side effects from antidepressants. You could have a decreased sex drive. And I'm like, you don't understand. This is something different. It's like I felt something's change in my brain. Like it felt like it'd been damaged, like short circuited.
So walk us forward from there, Ben. What happened after that first day on the medication?
I called my doctor. I talked to my doctor. They said it's normal for medications like this to have side effects, sexual side effects. Mm-hmm. I talked to my brother about it. He was experiencing the same thing. And we both took it for about a month. And after a month, it was unchanged. And I made the decision after just a month of taking it, I can't live like this. I would rather go with whatever the alternative is, being miserably depressed, whatever it is. I'd rather go with that than life be like this, with this heavy blanket that just suffocated all feeling, took all the color out of everything. You know, the luster for life is just totally eradicated. I'll push that aside and just go back to how it was before. Yes, I was sad, but at least everything worked. So I stopped taking it, and I tapered off safely. Me and my brother both did, and after a week or two, all of the symptoms dissipated for my brother, but they remained for me, and that was 14 years ago. And I still have PSSD as strong as it was on day one.
You mentioned a range of other symptoms outside of the sexual. Can you tell me about those? You sort of mentioned this kind of blanket. If you could, just describe that in further detail.
Yeah, it's like there's a filter on the reality. There's a disconnect between my perception of the world. The vibrancy of it is gone. I don't feel the things that I used to feel whenever I witness things happening around me. I've never been a super emotional person to begin with. I want to make that clear. I'm a very analytical person, but if I thought it was analytical before, you ought to see it now. All emotion is gone. There is no such thing as emotion. If an emotion isn't an 11 out of 10 for me, I don't even know what that means. It's got to be so far, so severe, such an acute emotional response for it to even register as like a 1 on the scale for me. And it's also like this disassociation with things. Like I kind of feel like I'm viewing reality one layer removed from everything. It's like I'm an observer almost of everything, and began then. I don't feel like I'm in the world anymore. I feel like I'm observing it from like a layer back. It's really hard to explain.
Did you know what had happened to you immediately, or did you wonder, is this mental illness? Has something worsened? Do I have another condition? What was that like, discovering what had happened to you?
I knew 30 minutes after I took the first pill that the pill is what caused all of that. I knew that. Mm-hmm. But it took me 4 or 5 years before I discovered that it had a name and that it was PSSD. And for that 4 or 5 years, I went through every possible thing. I wondered, am I crazy? I had gotten divorced like the year before, and I'm like, am I having a severe emotional breakdown or something? A therapist said, are you homosexual now? Like, have you had like a late reckoning or comes to term with you being gay? And all these things went through my head trying to figure out, what are the possible things that this could be. I saw 30 different doctors, endocrinologists, neurologists, therapists, sex therapists. I saw literally 10 different endocrinologists because they all, PSSD doesn't show up on test results in like a hormonal way. So they're like scrambling, trying to figure out what's going on, and nothing's showing up as being abnormal, except for, slightly reduced testosterone. But it was until I found out that it was PSSD, all the options were open. Because I'd never heard of such a thing before. And this was 14 years ago. The knowledge and visibility of PSSD is light years ahead of now than where it was 14 years ago. So it was very strange figuring out what had happened, but I knew that it was the medicine at least.
Yeah, and I think for some people who may not be familiar with PSSD, I'm going to run through some of the symptoms that I frequently encounter when I talk to people with PSSD. They describe genital anesthesia. Their genitals, they do not feel that sort of sexual sensation anymore. That's gone away. People describe it like it's touching the back of their hand. But on top of that, they have a really intense kind of dissociation. Some people have described it as feeling like they're watching life through a television, like they're not emotionally engaged in it. They'll say things like, if I go and I hug someone, I just don't feel that joy and that connection. I just feel very distant from people and the world. Some people with PSSD will also report cognitive damage and cognitive symptoms. They'll report difficulties concentrating and remembering things, and it can actually be quite disabling when it comes to working and earning a living. And so while all of these things kind of fall under the name PSSD, which has, post-SSRI sexual dysfunction, and it sounds sexual, it's a lot more than that. But there is one thing, Benjamin, that I actually haven't heard too much about before, and I know you've got, and it's got to do with sleep. And so I was wondering if you could share a little bit about some of the sleep symptoms that you've developed.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for reminding me about the cognitive impairment thing, by the way. I do suffer from that also, especially up front. It's eased a little bit over time, but I do suffer with cognitive impairment. But the sleep thing, that's just as hard to explain to people as the sexual part of it. So when I got PSSD, I noticed that I never felt, I no longer feel sleepy ever. It's very hard to describe, because that fuzzy feeling inside, whenever you can feel your heart slowing down, you can feel something inside your body yearning for sleep, that is gone. I don't even remember what it was like at this point, because it's been so long. It's whenever it's time to go to bed, or whenever I'm exhausted, whenever I'm tired and my body needs sleep, I kind of figure it out through other avenues. Like I'm like, oh, my eyelids are heavy. Oh, that's an indication that I must be sleepy. But there's no feeling whatsoever of feeling sleepy. And then whenever I wake up after I've slept, by the way, I actually sleep decently. Like I wake up a lot in the middle of the night, but I sleep, generally speaking. Whenever I wake up, it's like nothing happened. It's like someone booted up a computer. It's like, oh, hey, I don't feel refreshed. I never feel like I went to sleep. I don't feel like I lost consciousness. It's like nothing ever happened. So it's really difficult for me to get the adequate amount of sleep, because I don't know how much I need, and there's no incentive for me to continue sleeping, because if I wake up, I'm like, hello. There's nothing, telling me to go back to bed. It's just all of that circadian rhythm and drive is just gone.
Does that extend to other physiologic sensations and drives? Like, for instance, do you have anything happening with food, like hunger or thirst as well?
Not hunger or thirst. I haven't experienced that. Mm-hmm. I will say that this is an entertaining story, because until you have a condition like this, you wouldn't believe it. But I didn't drink alcohol until my late 20s. It was actually after I got PSSD, and it was a decade of drinking here and there before one day someone is like, hey, that feeling you get whenever you drink, like that euphoric feeling and like the buzz. And I'm like, what? And they're like, whenever you drink. And I'm like, I get dizzy. And they're like, no, like, you feel joyful and relaxed and buzzy, and you get that euphoric feeling. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So when drinking alcohol, I never experienced anything like that. The only thing I experience is if I drink too much, I get dizzy. There's no other physiological sensation at all from drinking alcohol. And I have heard another guy who has PSSD mention the same thing, but he had drank before PSSD, so he had something to compare it to. And he's like, afterwards, alcohol doesn't work with me anymore. I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, and I wonder if this is the same person, but I've actually heard this from several people now. But I had Simon Wright on the channel, part of the PSSD network, who actually went through the same thing. He questioned his sexuality when it first happened to him because he was so shocked by how he could go from being really attracted to women to having no interest and, struggling to perform sexually when he had never struggled before. But he had said that something that he used to do a lot was, drink and sometimes drink heavily, and it completely wiped that out. And after he put that on my radar, I actually talked to quite a few other people, and I had someone tell me that they did a full-on ibogaine trip after they had PSSDs. So ibogaines are very potent psychedelic. And he said what he experienced was just orders of magnitude less than everyone else around him. And so there does appear to be something with PSSD that is knocking out internal sensations. I mean, the more time I spend talking to people with this condition, the more it does seem like there's something about internal sensation that is greatly disrupted by this condition, where you don't feel a drive for sleep, you feel disconnected from people, you don't feel the effects of alcohol. It does appear to be a very sensory disability.
Completely agree with that. It echoes everything that I've experienced with PSSD. It's very strange because after 14 years you start questioning what was it like before, and then one day you'll remember, oh, that's that thing that I used to feel like XYZ whenever XYZ happened, and it's like you just forget all that's missing because it's been gone for so long. But that totally echoes how I feel. It's like if there's a connection in your brain for experiential things in life, especially sensory things, it's like it's just been severed. It's been severed. Mm-hmm. Your brain had to figure it out the best it could, and it remapped it in some strange way where it's like you kind of know that it's happening, but not really. But totally agree.
Talk to me about this. I mean, 14 years is a really long time to have a neurological injury, but the brain is neuroplastic, and I have seen some people talk about improvements. And so have you seen anything by way of improvements, even if it could be nothing, could be worse, or it could be small improvements? What have you noticed with symptom change over the last 14 years?
Yeah, so I had just immeasurable brain fog whenever I first got PSSD. I mean, it was just so unfathomably bad that I was on the verge of losing my job. It was bad. And I eventually took stimulants, and that did help with it a lot. But now I've realized that if I don't need them anymore. Like, I'm on stimulants right now, but if I were to stop them, I could still function. It's just the stimulants help. Before, it was an absolute necessity. I cannot function as a person. So the short story there is my brain fog has gotten better over time. I'll say that the genital numbness was severe for the first 5 years or so. Don't get me wrong, there is no sexual feeling there whatsoever. The erogenous sensation is completely gone still. However, the numbness has alleviated. So I can tell whenever there's sensation down there. I can tell whenever there's activity. So it's not numb anymore. It doesn't work correctly, but the numbness has alleviated as well.
Benjamin, please feel free to skip over this question if you'd rather not share. But I do want to ask, are you able to have an orgasm with this level of a numbness that's been going on?
Yeah. So I feel like my case is perhaps it's unique. I'm not an expert in PSSD by any means, and I haven't talked to a wide range of people about it because, I mean, hell, even 10 years ago, you couldn't find anything about this condition or much less people talking about it. But I can I can have sex. I have no problem at all with maintaining an erection, which it seems to be a little bit unique from what I've heard. Whenever I do orgasm, I don't know that it's happened. I essentially have to like look down and be like, oh, that happened. It's so incredibly muted that I have to check. And sometimes if I do know that it's going to happen, there's nothing sexual about it. It's like there's just a biological response that has occurred while I was doing this activity, and oftentimes it kind of evaporates, metaphorically evaporates before it's supposed to happen. It's like, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. And then it's almost like I feel like a short circuit happened and it just kind of dissipates into nothing. So yes, I can perform. Yes, they happen, but it's entirely physiological. There's no level of pleasure, of arousement. I don't know if that's a word. Well, you know what I'm saying?
It would go in line with, you're not feeling any euphoria when you drink, that you wouldn't have any euphoria upon climax either.
Yep.
Yep. What is it like romantically to form relationships and connections, date? I don't know where you are at the moment with this condition.
It's caused trouble. So the relationship I'm in now, my wife, she's been by far the most accepting significant other I've ever had. She understands and believes me completely. Most of the partners I've had in the past, because the condition is so rare, because it's not mainstream, they really take it personally. They take it personally. They think that, I'm not really attracted to them. That's what's going on. If we haven't had sex in a few weeks, it's something that's wrong with the relationship, and that's why it's not happening. And I'm like, actually, it's been erased from my brain. And that's just so difficult to explain to a significant other. It's caused a lot of problems in my previous romantic relationships.
Benjamin, do you have children?
I do.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and my wife is currently due with a second daughter in December. Okay. I will say that it was a miracle of medicine and science to make both of them happen. Dozens of doctor's visits, analysis, treatments, medicines. I was essentially infertile up until a few, maybe 6 months ago, until I did a year-long regimen to improve my testosterone and my fertility. So at 40 years old, I was essentially infertile. My sperm quality was so bad, and my testosterone was down to like 150 or something. It was bad. So lots of amazing work from amazing people doing the endocrinologist, the fertility specialist, and they helped us get there. Interestingly enough, my testosterone is now close to 1,000, and I feel no different. I feel like that's really, really important information for researchers and for anyone trying to study this condition, that you can, you watch on YouTube or online, and there's men that are like, my testosterone went from 500 to 600. Now I'm ready to conquer the world just from 100-point difference. Mine went from 150 to almost 1,000. And there's no difference whatsoever in my sexual appetite and my energy levels. And the only thing that I can tell is my voice is a little bit deeper, and that's it.
I find that the sufferers of this condition are often the best researchers and know the most about this. And so I'm going to ask, but it's okay if you don't know. Have you heard of other people developing poor sperm quality after they developed this condition?
I have not heard of that. I haven't researched that aspect of it. I know that I've read about other men with low testosterone. There does seem to be some mild correlation with low testosterone. but I haven't entered the fertility arena.
So anyone out there who has PSSD that's listening to this, because I know a lot of you do and you support the channel, drop it in the comments below. I mean, if you have anything that you can share about sperm quality following PSSD, I'd be really interested in hearing about it. So let's turn the page now and talk about the impact of being, I guess, emotionally numb. What is it like moving through life emotionally numb? Maybe you can touch on relationships, because I think that's probably a large area where that impacts.
Relationships and the other avenues of my life, they've all been impacted in a very similar way. And it's that I navigate through relationships and milestones in life and achievements through an intellectual lens now. I can look at it and say, I got a promotion at work. On paper, that looks great. Therefore, yay. I'm unable to feel anything because of it. But, from a logical, analytical perspective, this is a good thing. Therefore, okay, this is a good thing. Whenever I'm in a relationship, it's kind of the same way. I look at things very analytically, factual. This happened, this is going well, this isn't going well. It's all like I'm reading it on a piece of paper or something, and I make decisions based on my own observations. It's not based on like how I feel, there's no like gut instinct or anything like that. That's gone. It's all, I've been forced into this analytical, intellectual view of everything, including relationships.
And I know you mentioned you have a young daughter, and I imagine you probably still, she's a little older, but you probably still play with her a lot. Do you feel like that you had those drives, to grab your daughter and kind of throw her up in the air and spin her around and do those nurturing type fatherly behaviors? Was there a drive there, or were some of those things also knocked out by the PSSD?
They were not knocked out. So, I guess there's an asterisk next to that. I do those things. I see the joy in my daughter's face, and I don't have to think about doing them. They just happen. I'm just all of a sudden throwing her in the air. So it's almost like my body and my subconscious know what I should be doing as a father. Being a father is, and I know how generic this is. I know everybody says this, but really though, being a father is it's my pride and joy. It's my focal point in life. It's my mission in life is to be the best father that I can be. And those things happening, there's not like a deep inside feeling that I get whenever I do those things. It's just I find myself doing them and knowing that it's the right thing to do.
Do you enjoy your life?
I don't know. I don't know. On paper, I have nothing to complain about. I have an amazing career. I make good money. I have a great house. I'm in the best relationship I've ever been in with my wife. I have an amazing daughter and another daughter on the way. I have a rich, expansive network of family and friends. There's nothing to complain about, and I have everything to be happy over. But it's really hard to answer that question. Not because of the reasons that other people might not be able to answer it, but it's because I don't know what that means anymore.
You started these medications in your late 20s. What was that about? What made you try Cymbalta? What was going on?
I thought at the time, I graduated college, got my first job, my first real job, my first career job. I bought my first house. I got married. Got a dog. got my dream car. I had lots of free time, but I felt like something was missing in life. And looking back, I attributed it to depression, but it could have just been loneliness, because for our whole lives we grow up with a network of friends and schoolmates, and for me, my twin brother. And then you get out of college and you're by yourself, and it's like you've got your significant other, but you don't have anybody else in reality. Mm-hmm. It's just you and your significant other in the house. That's it. And that was a big shock to me. And it was a tremendous adjustment. And I maybe I was depressed. Maybe it was just that. Maybe that caused depression. Maybe it was environmental depression. I don't know what it was. But I felt like something was missing. I felt like I was getting into a bad place. So I decided to try the medicine.
Benjamin, after this happened to you, what was the reception that you received from medical professionals when you were going through the process of, I guess, sharing what had happened to you?
Yeah, it was...
Or maybe going to them for help as well, as I imagine you must have been doing. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a disaster of epic proportions. It was, if they were either downplaying it, making light of it, making jokes about it, not even kidding, making jokes about it, not
like
taking
what?
me seriously. Like, you're in, one doctor said, you're in your late 20s now. Every man's sex drive decreases as they age. Like, you're just going to have to get used to it. It's, there's worse things that can happen to people. Like, you just need to man up, and this is a common thing that happens with these medicines. Just totally downplaying it, and none of them. And I mean this quite literally. I saw 30 different doctors of all different types over a span of about 5 years, and not one of them had believed me that this was happening or had ever heard of PSSD. Not one. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I saw neurologists, and they had never heard of it, and they didn't believe me. And it was just this ultimate defeating defeatism. It was. I felt like I was someone trying to escape a mental institution, and they were like, "They're there now. Get your straight jacket back on." Like I felt like I was crazy. I felt like, and nobody believed me, and I would say roughly a quarter of them just flat out told me, this isn't happening. You just need therapy. This is not a physiological or neurological condition. You just need therapy. And I felt on the inside, I'm like, I know that it's not something that, CBT or something like that is going to help with. I know it's not. But they kept saying that, and finally, this was years and years and years later, just within the past 5 years or so. My counselor set me up with a video call with a doctor from Seattle. I'm really sorry that I can't remember her name. And she wasn't an expert in PSSD, but she helped a lot of people who had PSSD. And talking to her and hearing her say, "I hear you. I know what you're going through. Yes, this is what you have." That was just one of the best moments of my life. Honestly, I know it's sad that hearing someone tell you that you have this condition is one of the best moments of your life. But after years and years and years of everyone being like, "You're crazy. This isn't a thing," finally having someone say that, it was amazing.
Did your mom and dad believe you?
I haven't told either one of them.
Why is that?
I think because the type of support I need to get through it is more like bro support. So I've told my brother, I've told my friends, and they're an amazing support group. It just doesn't feel like, maybe because it's like sexual in nature, and I have to explain that part of it. And I just feel like that's not the type of support I need with this.
Yeah. And your twin brother, does he believe you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, he does. Right. Yeah. And my close friends do too.
Okay. And your brother, are you identical twins or fraternal twins?
I know that's a really, really simple question, and I can't answer it. So we were never tested. As kids, we looked identical. We were indistinguishable. Like if I showed you a picture, I can't even tell which one is me. As adults, we don't look quite the same anymore, but that can be because of like epigenetics or something else. I'm not sure what is the answer to that, but we're very, very, very much alike in so many ways.
Why do you think he didn't develop it and you did?
I wonder about that a lot. So me and my twin brother are both autistic, and so I know that our brains are already different than the average brain out there. I keep going back to like maybe some marker that I have that he doesn't. I mean, even identical twins aren't 100% identical from like a genetic standpoint. Maybe there's some marker that I have. Maybe there's some another thing that happened to me that I promise this is relevant. When I was 16, I got sick, really bad sick with like bronchitis and strep throat or something. I can't even remember what it was now. And I woke up one day and I had developed a taste and smell disorder, a sensory disorder with taste and smell, where things don't taste or smell like they're supposed to. So anything sweet smelled sour. I thought that something had died in our house. So I was going throughout the house. What is that smell? What is that smell? I can't take this. Something has died. We have to find it. And I finally found it. It was in the bathroom, and it was the shampoo. And it was just that scent smells like decay all of a sudden. I still have that condition to this day, by the way. So I've always, to me, that was kind of rewired at an early point in my life. And then 10 years after that, I got PSSD. And then the sleep thing changed with that also. I feel like I have some type of proclivity to having like wiring changes or something. And maybe my brother doesn't. I don't. Yeah. That's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like maybe your nervous system is just more sensitive to things. I mean, if you were developing these sensitivities to smell and such, which would make sense that when you were exposed to a medication, you might respond to it more dramatically. I don't have further questions, but I want to ask: is there anything that we haven't covered which you think is important to share with the audience?
I'll say that for about 10 years, PSSD ruled my life. I thought about it 100 times a day, literally 100 times a day. And it brought me down. It ruled me. And just over the past few years, the past 5 years especially, the more engaged I am with the PSSD community, the more people I see sharing their story on YouTube and other platforms, the more I see podcasters talking about it, the more I see it in the news and other outlets, the better I feel. And it's to the point now where I think I will say that I've come to terms with it. It took me a long, long, long time, but I've come to terms with it, and it does not rule my life anymore. I think about it maybe once a day, maybe. And whenever I think about it, I'm like, that happened. But look at what I've been able to do with my life anyway. I have a new mission anyway, being a father. Mm-hmm. PSSD is not going to stop me from that. And just, it took me a lot of time, but I finally did get to a point where I've come to terms with it, and I'm okay with it. I'm okay if I'm never healed from this condition. I'm okay with it. And perhaps some others can, on their own journey, will perhaps there's some relief knowing that that's a possibility. At least there's a possibility of coming to terms with it, because I have.
Well, Benjamin, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and share your story.
Yes, thanks for having me, doctor.
If you're looking for a video that could help explain PSSD to either your doctor or your family, you may be interested in checking out this video over here next.